If you want to know what's been going on the reserve list this week, you've come to the right channel because in today's video, we are going to check out the reserve list top 10. These are the hottest selling cards on the reserve list this week from Magic the Gathering, August 24th to the 31st. Guys, we have a lot to cover in today's video about what's going on in the secondary market. Hey guys, welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and thank you again for hanging out with me on my channel today as we discuss the top 10 selling cards on the reserve list. Remember, if you're a fan of my channel, if you like hanging out with the Moxman, don't forget you can use my TCG Player affiliate link that is found in the description of all my videos. You click the link, go to TCG Player, and of course any sales you buy there get kicked back to the channel at 3.5%. Thanks again. Now let's go to number 10. This is Lake of the Dead from Alliances. It has an average price of $83.08 right now. It had 31 sales this week. That's $2,575.48 of sales action. And let's not forget, ever since we had the Eldrazi come back around, we've had tremendous amount of sales that have been fueled in the secondary market because of the Eldrazi. When you look at high casting cost cards, things like Lake of the Dead can make it a lot simpler. Because not only does it have cool artwork, and it's just like a land card. It's not even legendary land, it's just a land. And it says, when Lake of the Dead comes into play, sacrifice a swamp or bury Lake of the Dead. And of course it taps for black mana. But you can also sacrifice a swamp to add 4 to your mana pool, which means you can ramp out Eldrazi and other massive casting cost creatures that much faster. If you can find ways to untap this thing and get lands back, you can see the recursion events that are going to happen. Now number 9 this week is going to be Zirlin of the Claw, and that's from Mirage. This card had significant action way back in 2022, 2023. It hit around 40, 50 bucks a card. And that's because dragons were all the rage when we saw things from Baldur's Gate come around with the ancient dragons. Well, guess what? Things repeat themselves and players should pay attention to that. 33 sales is only $311.19. This card is now less than 10 bucks, and you can find it on TCG Player for around $6 if you're looking for like a moderately played copy. So what are we getting? Well, for 2 red and 3 generic, this guy does something pretty insane. It says Summon Legend. You got to pay 2 red and 1 other. Search your library for a dragon card. Put it into play as though it were just summoned, guys. Shuffle your library afterwards. This creature is unaffected by summoning sickness. And then you remove it from the game, which means you hit hard, it's gone, and you don't have to worry about your opponent doing anything to it the turn after you bring it into play. It's just out of there. Guys, this is an insane card for what it costs to get. And to think dragons won't come back around is a fallacy. It's your fault if you don't pick up 4 copies. Now, Winding Canyons, again, directly related to what's going on with the Eldrazi. This card comes in at $33.95 a copy, 34 sales this week, kind of the residual sales left over from what we've seen. But a card like this now still had $1,154.30 of total sales action, and that's a pretty insane thing to reason with, right? That's still a lot of money for only 34 copies, and that's because this card went from like $6 all the way up to like $30, $40, $50, and now it's slowly trending back down. This is a land card being used in Atrocity, the Eldrazi, and it says here, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, or 2 and tap. Until end of turn, you may play creature cards whenever you could play instants. Giving all your creatures flash is insanity on steroids, ready to rip into your opponent with the right mana supply at the right time, or casting things out at the end of a turn after an opponent doesn't suspect it's going to happen. Put this thing into a commander deck with the Eldrazi, and you can see where things get insane really, really fast. But now we're jumping to Revised, because we're going to take a look at Fork. Now, this card has had continuous sales over the last 5 years that I've been here on YouTube. We can see the action continually going along up and down. 50 sales is a very respectable amount of sales for this card. $1,730.50, and the card comes in at $34.61. But during the buyouts of 2021, 2022, this card hit as high as 150 bucks with continuous sales action, especially for graded copies. So don't be surprised if one day this card comes back around. If you're looking for this card, you can probably save a lot of money if you buy it in moderately played right now. Now for 2 red, that's an interrupt, which basically nowadays is an instant. Any one sorcery or instant spell just cast is duplicated. Treat Fork as an exact copy of target spell, except Fork remains red. Caster of Fork chooses copies target, which is kind of insane. You get to have a lot of fun. Counter a counter spell, take an extra turn, time walk, fork, fork, fork. That's what we did back in the day. This thing has a lot of opportunity behind it, and players just need to recognize for 20 bucks, it's a card you should be grabbing right now. You don't have to go for near mint. You just need to own 4 copies, so you never have to worry about this card, and it's one of those things scratched off the bucket list. Now, for our next card, we're going away to alliances here. This is Soldevi Digger. Now, this one had a lot of action right there in 2023 when we had the release of the Doctor Who set series commander decks and the collector boxes, okay? Because this thing does something kind of unique that gets played with the Doctor Who deck, especially River Song. This thing went up to $15, and this week it had 52 sales, so somebody's taking a stab at it while it's low. It's $3.81 on average. So what are we going to do with Soldevi Digger that makes it interesting? What makes it work with River Song so well is, number one, it's a 2 casting cost artifact generic. And it says 2, take the top card of your graveyard and put it on the bottom of your library, okay? And River Song says you play cards from the bottom of your library as if they were on the top. So basically, if you had some kind of weird commander deck with time walking spells and you had enough creatures on the board, you could basically time walk infinitely because you're going to keep recasting it over and over and over again. Insane cards. Now, our next card is Griffin Canyon. Now, I think people are getting ready for the Final Fantasy, which has a lot of Griffins in there because this thing had 56 sales this week. $357.28. Stick around for the wrap up of my video. I have a few things to talk about, some of these cards that have been selling and a few that didn't make the list. So just keep that in mind, okay? If you're going to be halfway through the video right now and you make it this far, stick around to the end. Now, $6.38, of course, is our average price. The 56 sales is not a massive amount, but it is for this particular card at this particular time of year. So when we see these sales, it's something to keep in mind. Don't forget, Griffin Canyon has beautiful artwork. It taps for colorless mana, but it lets you untap a target Griffin, and that Griffin gets +1/+1. So you can be attacking an opponent, you untap your Griffin, give it a +1. When they block it, it gets a little bit of a buffer up there, and there's other cards that can trigger because you give +1/+1. Maybe you got another Bloodlust on top of there, maybe you got some crazy shenanigans going. It's a good card, okay? Now let's go ahead and take a look at our next card. I love card lands with no drawback. This is Hivas of the Scale, and this fits in with Zirlin of the Claw. But this card's only $1.52. This thing is super cheap. A few weeks ago I mentioned it because it had a lot of sales, and it was like 40 cents. Well, 63 sales this week works out to $95.76. It costs less than $1 to buy the card. So the reason I think it was being bought is, again, just like Zirlin, we know dragons come around. We know the tribal always gets revamped every few years. Buying these cards now at a super low price gives a speculator the room to jump on it later and cash in a lot of profit. Because this, again, is a 2 red, 3 generic, 3/4 summon legend. You may choose not to untap Hivas of the Scale during your untap phase, and you can gain control of target dragon. If Hivas becomes untapped or you lose control of Hivas, you lose control of the dragon. That would include shapeshifters, changeling, and the like. But there's a lot of big dragons out there. You would love to take control of it, though, you know, when they don't expect it to come along. So this kind of card, I think, is going to have some serious value in the long term. Not now, but 10 years from now. It's going to be a $30, $40 card. Keep your eye on it. Now, here we jump along again to Revised, okay? We're now getting into some serious cards. You look at this Brain Geyser, taking the number 3 spot with 91 sales. And that's because, although it says $14.99, you can find this card for $5, $6 on things like TCG Player, even your local card shop, moderately heavily played. The 91 sales is $1,364.09 of sales action. This card was here last week as well. And I'm not exactly sure why we're seeing so many copies sell, but it is a decent card. It does get played in Commander, and it being the most popular format, anyone building using blue is probably going to add this kind of card in. It is a sorcery for 2 blue and X, and it says target player must draw X cards. So you can have yourself draw cards, have other people draw cards, but early game, late game, no matter where you put this card in, it can be a helpful factor to your gameplay. Keep it in mind. You can also make a friend. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our next card, which definitely should not be here, but it is. Here's Rofellos, the Llanowar Emissary Urzas, and people are talking about unbannings and stuff. So 147 sales this week. That's $3,776.43. Now, $25.69 is the average, but when you look at the sales volumes, they're way off the charts from where they normally would be. But it was really weird when you looked at some websites, even like TCG Player, I was getting different amounts, so I kind of had to work this out a bit and talk to a lot of people to find out the numbers from stores. So Rofellos, of course, is a 2 green, 2/1 creature, legend elf, and it says add 1 green mana to your mana pool for each forest you control. You can see why people would not want this being unbanned, but there's a lot of talk right now. And it seems to be the rumor mill comes around every time we get around to these bannings, unbannings of what's going to happen in Commander. And that's what's going to make the next card so easy to talk about, okay? We're going to take a look again at Revised. We're going to get insane. It's not going to be this elf boy. We're going back to a single casting cost enchantment. Yes, we're going back to Fast Bond. This card jumped up this week. It has gained massive value, and the sales ended up at 306 sales. That's $15,296.94. This card is averaging $49.99. Whenever we think of unbannings and the idea as a casual format that cards like Fastbond should be unbanned. I mean, if they can allow a Power 9 card like a Time Twister in there, why not just unban a lot of cards? Let players have to deal with it in a casual format, have some fun. Fastbond, guys, 1 green. And you get an enchantment that says when you can play as many lands as you want each turn, and Fastbond does 1 damage to you. And of course, in Commander, that's not going to matter much as getting all those lands out. Now, we also saw a lot of our land cards sell last week for these land decks, so it makes sense that players might be interested in the idea that this card gets unbanned, but really, I have no clue what that rules committee is going to do. Me and my friends just play with it anyway. It's up to you and your play group. It's a casual format. Let's get to the roundup here, guys. Now, it's not just Fastbond that we need to talk about. There's a lot more going on than just this one particular card and people speculating on if Fastbond and Rofellas are going to get unbanned. There was a lot of other cards that still saw a lot of sales action, but I need to talk about these cards. Things like Seeds of Innocence, it has seen a lot less sales action. The price has been cut in half, and it's finally drifting back down to earth. So any player looking for that card, you can find it for between 11 and 14 bucks on TCG Player. You can save yourself a lot of time and money, but I think it's going to continue to fall back down to below the sub $10 level if you wait 6 months. Just depends on how long you want to wait, okay? Gushta's Scepter, same thing. It's seen huge sales, not a lot of action right now, and the card is starting to drift. Reserve list cards cannot maintain value unless there's enough playability of the card to warrant it staying used in multiple decks, not just one commander deck, but 3, 4, 5 different commander decks to make sure we maintain a certain stability for the card. With the supply demand all being met, it means the card can't maintain a higher price point and eventually it drifts down. It takes years and years of this conceptual, taking away from the market and manipulation of the market to have reserve list cards continue to have a higher volume of sales and a lower resale value. You're not going to see this continue. These cards are going to continue to drop unless we have enough taken away from the market. We're not going to see that right now, so anyone with enough patience is always going to come out ahead. Players have noticed this. They've bought on the lower price scale, and then when a card hits it high, they're in a good position to resell back into that market, buy into the low market, sell into the FOMO market, and they come out so far ahead it's insane because players aren't looking ahead like those individual players might be who are speculating in this market. Pay attention to it, guys. You can see the numbers. Pay attention to these videos and you will catch these types of things over time, just like I do. Thanks again for hanging out. Thanks for being here on the channel. If you guys have questions, comments, anything, drop in the comment section. I do check it every day. Or, of course, you can send me an email, lang@hotmail.com. Of course, the fastest way to get answered is if you're on my Patreon and you're part of my private Discord. Guys, thanks again for hanging out. I'll see you guys in the live stream. Have an awesome day today. That's a lot of sales. Oh, we're at the credits. We're at the credits. See these credits? These are credits going by. Credits, more credits. You see the credits, here go, keep going, more names. See all these people? These are all special people. Their names going by, yep, more names. Okay, here's some more. Yep, Necronomicon, page 1018, the waiting room. Yeah, I know. These are the guys who make it happen. These are my patrons, guys. The patrons, the YouTube membership members make this happen every day. Army of Narctis, Boomstick, we got this. How many times do we need to repeat ourselves before we get it? How many times does this have to happen? Where the sales show you what to buy. You think Dragon Tribal's done? It's Magic the Gathering. Dragons will come again. Some new hires, synced in, powerful dragon. Somebody's going to build a new commander deck. They're going to need a Hivas the Scale. They're going to go for Zero of the Claw. Somebody buys Hivas of the Scale at 50 cents, near mint. And they buy 50. Great, 50 bucks. Then they go ahead and they sell 10, but they're selling them at $8, $9 a piece. Well, they've doubled their money and they get to keep a whole bunch for the next time. This stuff goes on and on. I don't think people get it. That's why I'm buying cards for the channel. So we won't have to live through this. And it'll be other people's problem. You can see it, you're going to lean into it, and somebody's going to make a lot of money. If you're my patrons, it's not going to happen to you if I can help it. Guys, thanks again. See you later. Ramble Jamble!